The year is 1285. A village in rural France. A woman in her early 60s kneels in a garden, pulling root vegetables from the cold earth. Her hands are weathered but strong. Her movements are slow but certain. She's been working since dawn, as she has every day for decades. Later, she will walk a mile to help her daughter with a difficult childbirth. She will carry water. She will advise younger women on remedies she learned from her own mother. She will eat a simple meal, tend the fire, and sleep deeply in complete darkness. She has no supplements, no medical care beyond herbs and rest, no retirement plan, no pension, no assisted living facility waiting for her. And yet, her joints still work, her mind remains sharp, her body serves her. Now consider a modern person of the same age, 62 years old, living in a developed nation with access to the finest healthcare in human history. Medications for blood pressure, cholesterol, joint pain, a comfortable home with heating and cooling, a car to avoid walking, a phone to avoid isolation, and yet chronic back pain, brain fog, fatigue that never fully lifts, a growing list of specialists, a quiet sense that the body is failing, slowly but inevitably. We assume medieval people lived short, brutal lives and aged quickly. The reality is far more complicated. Medieval life expectancy was indeed lower, but not for the reasons most people assume. And those who survived childhood often remained functionally capable far longer than their modern counterparts. What if aging didn't always look like decline until we changed how we live? Welcome to the Medieval Advantage. I'm glad you're here. On this channel, we examine forgotten knowledge, not to romanticize the past, but to understand what modern life has quietly discarded. Today, we're exploring one of the most counterintuitive patterns in human history. Why did medieval people often age more slowly than we do despite living shorter lives? Let's begin by clarifying a statistical misunderstanding that distorts everything. When we hear that medieval life expectancy was 35 or 40 years, we imagine people collapsing in middle age, worn out and decrepit. But this average is profoundly misleading. Life expectancy statistics include everyone, including the massive number of infants and children who died before age 5. Infant mortality in medieval Europe was devastating, sometimes reaching 40% or higher. This single factor dragged the statistical average down dramatically. But those who survived childhood told a very different story. If you made it to age 20 in medieval Europe, you had a reasonable chance of reaching 60, even 70. The skeletal record confirms this. Medieval cemeteries contain significant numbers of individuals who lived into their 6th and 7th decades, and many of these remains show evidence of continued physical activity until near the end. These were not frail, dependent elderly. They were working members of their communities. The question is not why medieval people died young. Many didn't. The question is why those who survived often remained functional longer than modern people with access to vastly superior medical care. The answer lies in alignment. Medieval lives were structured, often harshly, around patterns that matched human biology. Modern lives are structured around convenience, efficiency, and comfort. These are not the same thing. Consider movement. The modern fitness industry treats exercise as a distinct activity. You go to a gym, you follow a program, you exercise for an hour, then return to sitting for the remaining 15 hours of your waking life. Medieval people did not exercise, they moved, constantly, as an inseparable part of daily existence. Walking was the primary mode of transportation. Farming required endless repetitive motion. Bending, lifting, carrying, pulling. Domestic work demanded physical engagement, from morning until night. Even merchants, craftsmen, and clergy spent most of their days on their feet, in motion, using their bodies. This wasn't intense exercise, it was continuous low-level activity, the kind human bodies evolved to expect. The difference matters enormously for aging. Joints remain healthy through use. Cartilage depends on regular compression and release to receive nutrients. Connective tissue maintains elasticity through consistent, gentle stress. Circulation improves with movement and degrades with stillness. The medieval body was constantly maintained through the simple act of living. Modern bodies experience the opposite pattern. We sit for hours in positions our anatomy never evolved to sustain. Then we burst into intense exercise that shocks unprepared tissues. Then we sit again. The cycle creates neither the gentle maintenance of constant movement nor the recovery of genuine rest. Our joints degrade not from overuse, but from underuse punctuated by abuse. Our connective tissue stiffens from hours of immobility. Our circulation slows. Our lymphatic system stagnates. Our muscles atrophy between artificial training sessions. We treat exercise as medicine to counteract the poison of sedentary life. Medieval people needed no such medicine because the poison didn't exist. Now consider how they ate. Modern conversations about diet focus on optimization. Macros, micros, supplements, timing, restriction. We treat food as a problem to be solved, a variable to be controlled. Medieval eating was simpler, but that simplicity contained hidden sophistication. Food was seasonal by necessity. You ate what grew or what had been preserved. This meant natural variation across the year, different nutrients, different caloric density, different metabolic demands. The body adapted constantly, never locked into monotonous patterns. Fasting occurred naturally, not as a discipline or a trend, but as a consequence of food availability. Religious fasting amplified this pattern. Periods of scarcity alternated with periods of relative abundance. The metabolism remained flexible, responsive, resilient. Sugar was rare. Sweetness came from fruit in season, occasionally from honey. The chronic blood sugar elevation that defines modern metabolic disease simply didn't exist for most people. Insulin functioned as evolution intended, spiking occasionally, not constantly. Fermented foods appeared daily. Bread was often sourdough. Dairy was cultured into cheese and clabbered milk. Vegetables were preserved through lactofermentation. These foods provided beneficial bacteria that supported gut health, immune function, and even mental clarity. The result was metabolic stability, not optimization, not perfection, but a steady, calm metabolic state that modern processed diets have made nearly impossible to achieve. Modern eating creates metabolic chaos, constant feeding, engineered hyperpalatability, blood sugar roller coasters, gut microbiomes devastated by antibiotics, preservatives, and lack of fermented foods. The body never rests, never stabilizes, never finds equilibrium. This chaos accelerates aging at the cellular level. Sleep tells a similar story. We've explored segmented sleep in previous videos, but its relationship to aging deserves specific attention here. Medieval people slept in alignment with darkness. When the sun set, activity wound down. Firelight provided minimal illumination, enough to eat, to talk quietly, to prepare for rest. Then darkness took over completely. In this environment, melatonin production followed its natural rhythm. The hormone rose as light faded, initiating sleep. It remained elevated through the night, supporting the deep restorative processes that repair cellular damage and consolidate memory. Cortisol, the stress hormone, followed its own ancient pattern, low at night, rising gradually toward dawn to prepare the body for waking. These two hormones danced in opposition, each supporting the other's function through proper timing. This hormonal rhythm is fundamental to healthy aging. Melatonin is not merely a sleep chemical, it's a powerful antioxidant that protects neurons from degradation. Proper cortisol cycling prevents the chronic elevation that damages virtually every system in the body: immune function, bone density, cognitive clarity, emotional regulation. Modern life disrupts these rhythms catastrophically. Artificial light extends the day indefinitely. Screens emit wavelengths specifically designed to suppress melatonin production. We stimulate ourselves until moments before attempting sleep, then wonder why rest feels shallow and unrefreshing. Cortisol no longer follows its natural curve. For many people, it remains elevated throughout the day and into the night, a constant low-grade stress response that never fully resolves. This hormonal chaos accelerates brain aging, weakens immune response, and promotes the chronic inflammation underlying almost every disease of modern old age. Medieval people weren't healthier because they understood hormones. They were healthier because their environment didn't constantly assault the systems that regulate them. Perhaps the most underappreciated factor in medieval aging was psychological. Modern people expect comfort. We are shocked when the body hurts, outraged when systems fail, anxious about every sign of decline. We have built identities around convenience, and when inconvenience arrives, we experience it as violation. This psychological relationship to hardship has profound biological consequences. Chronic psychological stress activates the same physiological pathways as physical threat. Cortisol rises, inflammation increases, cellular repair slows. The body enters a state of constant low-level emergency that was never meant to be sustained. Medieval people expected hardship, not because they were tougher or more virtuous, but because hardship was normal. Cold was normal. Physical labor was normal. Discomfort was normal. Scarcity was normal. When you expect difficulty, its arrival doesn't trigger crisis. The nervous system responds proportionally rather than catastrophically. Stress remains acute, tied to specific events, rather than becoming the chronic background noise of modern existence. This is not an argument that suffering is good. It's an observation that our relationship to suffering shapes its biological impact. The medieval elder didn't experience her aching joints as failure. She experienced them as the ordinary condition of a body that had worked for 6 decades. This acceptance, this absence of psychological resistance, reduced the secondary stress that amplifies physical decline. Modern people often age faster because they are chronically stressed about aging itself. Community structure reinforced these patterns in ways we've almost entirely lost. In medieval villages, elders were not dependents, they were contributors. They held knowledge that younger people needed, practical wisdom about farming, weather patterns, medicinal plants, conflict resolution, childbirth, death. This knowledge gave them purpose until the end. Purpose is not merely psychological comfort. Research consistently shows that sense of purpose correlates with slower cognitive decline, better immune function, and longer health span. People who feel useful age more slowly than people who feel discarded. Medieval society couldn't afford to discard its elders. Their accumulated wisdom was irreplaceable in a world without written manuals, without internet searches, without external storage for knowledge. Modern society systematically separates the elderly from contribution. Retirement removes people from productive roles. Nursing facilities isolate them from community. Technological change renders their knowledge obsolete. They become recipients of care rather than providers of value. This shift is not merely sad, it's biologically harmful. Social isolation accelerates cognitive decline. Loss of purpose degrades immune function. The message that you're no longer needed becomes, over time, a physiological reality. We must also consider illness differently. Medieval people faced acute threats, infections, injuries, epidemics. These were often fatal, but those who survived typically recovered fully. The body mounted an inflammatory response, resolved the threat, and returned to baseline. Modern disease patterns look very different. We have conquered many acute threats, but we have replaced them with chronic conditions, autoimmune disorders, metabolic syndrome, persistent low-grade inflammation that never fully resolves. These conditions don't kill quickly. They degrade slowly. They require ongoing management rather than recovery. They become permanent features of biological existence. Medieval people either healed or died. Modern people often do neither. We persist in states of partial dysfunction that would not have been survivable in previous centuries but are now maintainable through intervention. This is not an argument against modern medicine. Medical advances have extended life dramatically and reduced suffering immensely. But we should be honest about the trade-off. We have extended lifespan while often compressing vitality. We have added years while subtracting function. We have created conditions where people live longer but spend more of those years in decline. Let's return to that village in rural France. The woman in her 60s has finished her day. She has worked, walked, helped, taught, and rested. Her body is tired in the way bodies are meant to be tired, from use, not from resistance to disuse. She is not optimized, she is not supplemented, she is not tracked by devices or analyzed by specialists. She is simply aligned. Her movement patterns match what her body expects. Her food provides steady nourishment without metabolic assault. Her sleep follows darkness without artificial interference. Her stress is acute and situational, not chronic and existential. Her community needs her, and she knows it. She will likely die younger than her modern counterpart, but she will age differently, more slowly, more gracefully, with more function preserved until closer to the end. This is not superiority, it's alignment, and alignment is what modern life has systematically dismantled. We have not made aging better, we have made dying slower. What would it mean to reclaim some of what was lost? Not by abandoning medicine or rejecting technology, but by questioning whether every convenience actually serves us. What does it truly mean to age well? And what did we unknowingly trade away in our pursuit of longer life? On this channel, we examine the knowledge, modern life, buried, not to go backward, but to understand what still matters. Thank you for watching this video. I deeply appreciate you taking the time to think through these ideas with me. If this exploration has offered a new perspective on aging, health, and what we've gained and lost, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the Medieval Advantage channel. Your support allows us to continue uncovering forgotten wisdom that still has power to change how we live. I'll see you in the next one.